And I quote you here, retirement is when you are doing exactly what you want to be doing.
I went to a presentation and this fellow, asked the audience, give me a definition of retirement. They said, oh, it's when you stop working and wait to die. And he said, no, 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 it's when you're doing exactly what you want to be doing. And that really resonated with me. I do have 40 years of crazy to try to get over because it seeps into your bones. I still wake up in the middle of the night having dreamt that I'm practicing, I'm drafting, I'm negotiating. And you wake up after all of that and you realize there's nobody to bill. It's really very disconcerting.
I can imagine. Sounds like you might need got some trauma responses to work through there from all those years of being a lawyer.
Absolutely. For the audience, Becky told me to be upbeat. This is going to be a little less upbeat for a second. You get to a certain age and you say to yourself, how long am I going to be healthy enough to do whatever I want? And time to do it now. Spend the money now. 60 to 70, you're good. 70 to 80 might, hopefully you're good for a lot of it. But, it becomes problematic after a while. And then it's the time to spend all that money that I had no time to spend because I was working 7 days a week.
So what advice do you have, or what are your thoughts around planning for retirement?
Make friends. Keep friends. Right. Don't work so much that you lose all your old friends. You're going to get to retirement age and you need a sense of community. You need to not be lonely. If you've spent your whole life working with your head down and the only people you associate with are your work colleagues, you wake up one day and you realize, you know what, your work colleagues aren't interested in you after you've retired. Now, some might say maybe that's you, Murray. Maybe they didn't even like you while you were working. I hear this from a lot of people. You think these people are your friends, or the people you go to lunch with, you go out for drinks with, you go to the pub and whatever. They're not. They're busy working. When you retire, they're still working all those crazy hours. So if you haven't done something to develop your interests and hobbies and have a picture of what you want to be doing the day after, you retire, then you get to retirement and it can be lonely. I know a number of people who, they've retired and they've become depressed. And I know other people who can't imagine retiring, not so much because they love what they do, but because they're terrified of what they're going to do with their time afterwards. There's a very well-known lawyer. His name was Lorne. I sat down with him when he was 85 years old. And I said, Lorne, why are you still working? He was still a partner in a law firm, though most of what he was doing was business promotion at that stage. And he said, Murray, I'm still working because if I stop working, I'll cease to be relevant. And he was delighted. He loved that life. Now, at 87, he died in the office. He collapsed in the office, and I'm told while they were strapping him to the gurney, he was giving instructions on his files to his legal assistant. But the point is, he loved it. He wouldn't have had it any other way. And as far as I'm concerned, he was retired because he was doing exactly what he wanted to be doing. I see so many more who are working till they drop simply because they have no notion of what they do afterwards, and they're terrified of what's going to happen afterwards. Absolutely terrified. And here I am speaking about planning for retirement, but if you ask me if I planned for retirement very well, I'd say not really, because I also worked way too hard. I had some plans and some ideas. My number one plan was to get out of Toronto and move to the country. So I did that. My number two plan was to buy the pickup truck, which I did.
I'm going to give another quote, although this is from your late father. So the problem with life is that generally it does not end well. I like this quote quite a lot. So yeah, discuss.
That was one of my father's positive quotes, if you believe that. I burned out a few times in my career, never so seriously that I ended up taking a leave or being in the hospital, but seriously enough that I'd walk into a meeting and start a conversation and forget where I was going and not be able to finish the sentence. I mean, that happens to all of us, but it was happening to me 5 times in the same meeting. You don't have a lot of bandwidth to handle the personal stuff when you're working as hard as a lot of lawyers work. It doesn't take a lot to knock you off your stride. I think the difference between being burned out and knowing you want to retire, when you're feeling burned out, it's sort of episodic. You come out of it and you're feeling better again. When you're at the point where it doesn't matter what you do, what vacation you take, your still thought process is, yeah, I've had enough of this. Then I think it's no longer about burnout. It's about just wanting it. So let me segue into the whole thing about money. One of the things I've written about, and I like to talk about, is the number. People go around their whole career talking about what the number is that they have to reach in order to retire. And they never get to the number. I never could get to the number. It's just when I thought, okay, it's, it's whatever number of $1 million they have to have in the bank to retire. I'd speak to one of my buddies and they were convinced the number was several million more than that. And, and you're crazy if you retire, if you think you can retire on what you're thinking about. So I went along and my conclusion is that if you're focused on getting to the number in order to retire, you're never going to retire.
Make sure that you attend my next LinkedIn Live, because I am going to be dropping a very special offer, and it's only going to be available for LinkedIn Live attendees. So come and find me on LinkedIn and get on the action.